Now this lesson that we're going to discuss now is a really big one. It's one a lot of people struggle with: advertising. What works and what doesn't. This is one that I have learned the hard way with over the years, because I've spent a huge amount of money on advertising that didn't work, and I've spent a lot of money on advertising that did work. And I've also had advertising that didn't cost anything but really worked great. So I'm going to talk to you about my experience of what doesn't work, what works, and what's worth paying for and what's not worth paying for. So in terms of my least successful advertising campaigns, let me share with you some of those that have been pushed and sold to me and that I fell for like an idiot but didn't work. Number one, I think, was Yell.com. So you remember the Yellow Pages that basically doesn't exist now? Then they created Yell.com, which was like an online version of the Yellow Pages. And just like the Yellow Pages salesmen in the past, they have this team of hardcore salesmen who will convince you to part with your hard-earned cash because they can get so many eyeballs on your advert and they can get this number of clicks to your website and blah, blah, blah. Well, they did the hard sell on me. This was with my previous company. And I was a bit young and naive and I fell for it. I parted with probably 1,200 quid of my hard-earned cash to create a Yell listing on a certain categories, and of course they did try and upsell you, you know, add this category and add that category, and this is how many inquiries we have for rewires each year and blah blah blah, and I got nothing from it, zip diddly squat. And the reason is really, although they have loads of great figures and stuff, not that many people actually use these kind of services to get what they want. I mean, when was the last time you used Yell.com? I don't think I've ever used Yell.com to actually buy something, because I just do a Google search and Google is free. If you do it properly, you can get free advertising on Google. So don't pay for Yell.com or one of those expensive directories. Thompson is another one. I do have a listing on Thompson, but it's literally just a one-liner. It doesn't cost me much at all. And it's just there as part of my search engine optimization campaign, which is basically all about getting me to the top of Google. And that wants to be your mission when it comes to marketing. So that didn't work. Other things that didn't work, I remember once I paid a stupid amount of money to have my business cards put on a special business card dispenser at the exit of Homebase. And I thought this would be a great idea, because what happens, people go to Homebase and they buy a light fitting, and then as they're walking out they think, oh, I'll need an electrician to fit my light fitting, and so, oh, they see Jordan's business cards and, oh, there's an electrician, let me take his business card. What happened? I paid over £1,000, I think £1,500 to have my business cards in my local Homebase, and didn't get anything at all from it. Again, it was a complete flop. They'd done the hard sell on me, they fleeced me completely, and it didn't work. I just didn't get anything from it. So what lessons have I learnt from this, if anyone's trying to hard sell you advertising? Like, if you're feeling pushed or pressured to buy some advertising, don't. Just hang up and take a breather and actually think about it and do some research. Because these people want to hook you in quickly and get you on board before you change your mind. So don't be naive and don't pay huge sums of money for advertising, especially when you're starting up. Go for more cheaper, more effective forms of advertising. That's what I've learned. So what advertising does work? What have I found? Well, when I was first starting out, I did post office and local shop adverts. And the reason is I was aiming for a local market. This was with my previous business. This is something that I learned from it that did work. I was aiming for people in my local villages who were looking for a local electrician. That was my tagline at the time, your local electrician. And so what I did was put these adverts in, and they cost like 50p a week on a postcard sized piece of paper, and you can get it designed nicely and printed out nicely with your contact details clearly visible. And then you put it in, and I just used to put it in for like 12 weeks at a time. 12 weeks, 50p a week, that's like £6. And everyone who goes to the post office, local people who want local services, they want to support their community, what do? They go, they see your advert, and I got loads of work from that, and it was so cheap and simple. So that was one thing that worked. If that fits with your niche and your vision of your target market, etc., then it could be a good option. Another thing that worked was village magazines. Again, if you're aiming for local and villages, this is a good one. Each village usually, or parish, has a village magazine, and it has all the news from the village, and often it has like a schedule for when the bins are going out to be picked up and things like that. And so people do tend to actually read it, people who are interested in the village and the village community. And there are advert pages in there where you can put an advert for quite a reasonable price. So for maybe £70 or something like that, you can have a half-page advert in there for 3 months, and it will actually be read and you'll actually be contacted from that kind of advert. Now, obviously your ad copy, or the actual content of your ad, will make a big difference to whether it's successful or not. So maybe get some help with designing your advert if you're not really confident in designing an advert yourself. But it can be quite simple and bold, and because it's local, you can target your local market, and that's something that has worked for me in the past. What else? Well, really the biggie is what I talked about to you earlier, which is Google, and Google is basically free. I mean, you can pay for Google with what's called pay-per-click advertising, Google AdWords, and that is expensive, but you do get results in terms of you can pay to be at the top of Google for certain search terms, and every time someone clicks on your advert you pay something for those click-throughs. So you only pay for what you get in terms of click-throughs to your website, but it's not necessarily the click-throughs that are actually going to create sales, so it's a little bit tricky to monitor. And if you're going to do that, if you've got the budget to do it, because we're talking about thousands of pounds probably here to do that, you really need to get professional help to do it properly, because if you try and do it on your own, it's just like burning money. I've messed around with it before in the past myself and just created my own little campaigns and stuff, and like 500 quid budget just disappears in days if you're not careful, and you can end up getting nothing back from it because you have to be so careful in designing the ad to create the maximum amount of click-throughs and actions on behalf of customers. So personally, I've stayed away from it, and I've never paid for pay-per-click advertising in my current electrical business. I don't think it's necessary. If you concentrate on, when you're designing your website, having it built with what's called SEO in mind, that is search engine optimization. In other words, make it search engine friendly so that the keywords that are in your website get picked up by Google. Google will rank you higher on the search results, and what you want to get is to the point where somebody types in Electrician, Bognor Regis or whatever, and you are one of the first ones that comes up. It does take a little bit of time to do that, but with a bit of time and work you can quite quickly rank on Google, on the first page of Google, and the more links that you get back to your website from other reputable pages will help you to rank higher on Google as well, because with Google it's all about authority. They look at your authority in the space and then they rank you accordingly. But your website designer will be able to help you with all of that, so it's worth talking about that and asking about that when you're getting your website designed. Another marketing strategy that someone tried to sell me, which I avoided, is this golf club thing, where, you know, they have these adverts at a golf club and you can appear in the screen and the clubhouse at the golf club, and they generally want between like £1,000 and £2,000 for these kind of things. And I've not experienced it personally, but somebody else who I know closely went for it, and again, it didn't work. It was one of those hard selling things. It sounds like a good idea, but it just doesn't work. Generally, if it sounds too good to be true, it probably is. Another marketing strategy that I want to talk to you about is Checkatrade. Many people ask me, is Checkatrade worth it? Is it a rip-off, etc.? And so I want to be honest with you. Checkatrade, I am with Checkatrade and I found it to be beneficial, but it is expensive compared to maybe other marketing companies. So it depends if you've got the budget for it. It can cost, I think it cost me like £1,500 a year to advertise with Checkatrade now. It starts off at maybe 500, but then they add on various sorts of things. So for example, one of the things that I've chosen to add on with Checkatrade is to have these leaflet drops that they do for you. They've got these very nicely designed leaflets which have various contractors in there, and they put your details on there, and that gets delivered out to thousands of households in your area. For me, that was a good way to reach the target market that I was sort of missing, which was the elderly people who don't use the internet. because most of my marketing is online, and so I thought that what I was missing was the older side of the population, shall we say, who've got money, who want a good electrician, but they don't go online to search for an electrician necessarily. So that has been very successful for me. The good thing about the Checkatrade leaflet is that they give you a special number which will be tracked, so they can tell you exactly how many phone calls you've had through that leaflet marketing campaign, so you can see whether it's really been worth it or not. They actually text leads through to you now if somebody requests a callback from you online. It'll be texted through to you, emailed through to you, so you can contact the customer directly. The online side of things is how the whole Checkatrade idea works from an online point of view, is that it works with a feedback system. So just like I've mentioned, probably about getting Google reviews, Checkatrade reviews are also important, and you will not succeed with Checkatrade unless you get constant good feedback coming through. So the idea is that they give you these feedback cards. You give a feedback card to the customer at the quoting stage, and that just avoids you only giving feedback cards to customers you know are happy because you've already done the job. And the idea is that you get honest feedback coming in from the customers, and if you've got basically, like how the ranking system works is that the ones with the most recent feedback get bumped up to the top of the listings. So if you've got, say, one review a week coming through, or every couple of weeks, then you'll generally stay quite high on the rankings, and then you'll get more work coming in. The people who fail with Checkatrade generally are the people who don't keep putting in the effort to get the feedback. Then they just end up at the bottom of the listing. Nobody sees their advert, so they don't get any work from it, and then they say, oh, Checkatrade is rubbish, it doesn't work. I would say about 10 to 15 inquiries a week we get through Checkatrade at the moment. So for me it's worth it. It does pay for itself definitely, but you need to have the budget for it. They do have a monthly payment plan, so that kind of helps. You can divide the annual cost over 12 months. So for me, I sort of pay about £130 a month or something like that. 1 or 2 jobs will pay for it. It more than pays for itself. But again, if you're on a tight budget for marketing, maybe it's better to go with some of the cheaper marketing options first. And then when you've got a bit more of a budget, go over to Checkatrade and try that if that appeals to you. So when we talk about leaflet drops, actually if you think about it, you could just do your own leaflet drops, and that could work out a lot cheaper than getting Checkatrade to do it. I have tried this method and it has worked for me in drumming up a certain amount of business, but you have to be prepared that when it comes to leaflet drops, the fact is you usually will not get a huge amount of responses. On average, they say that a good response level is about 1 person per 1,000 leaflet drops. So it's like 0.1%, which is quite low. But if you put thousands of them out, then you are almost guaranteed to get some kind of return from it. What you need to do is design a really eye-catching flyer to be able to put out and have it printed nicely. So I'll leave links in the description where I got my flyer designed and where I got it printed, and a leaflet delivery company as well. And again, it does take a little bit of investment to do this. I think it cost me about £50 to get the flyer designed by a marketing expert, and then it costs me maybe a couple of £100 to get 20,000 leaflets printed, for example. But then you've got them there, and then you can either decide to deliver them yourself, which is obviously free but takes some of your time, or if you don't have time to deliver them yourself, then you can use a leaflet delivery service, which most cities have a leaflet delivery company that will be able to deliver your leaflets for you. But again, that adds to the cost, so you have to weigh it up and see, depending on your budget, whether it's worth doing or not. As I say, I have tried it and it did give me some leads, but I'd say not a huge amount of leads. So now it's something that I never use for my business because I've already got loads of organic leads coming in from Google and YouTube and other sources. But at the time when I was getting started, it was a helpful way to kind of get my business noticed a little bit and get a few leads coming in from areas that I wanted to target. And that's the great thing about leaflets, is that you can choose certain areas where you know your target market live. You know, if you're aiming for an upmarket, kind of high-end customer, obviously you're not going to scatter leaflets all over the local council estates. You want to aim for the more expensive areas where properties tend to cost a lot more, because that is the type of client that you're aiming for. And a leaflet delivery service is useful in that they will know the kind of areas that you want to reach. If you tell them your target market, they will help you to choose the area that will be best suited to you to be able to hit that target market with your leaflet drop. So something that I would say is worth trying, but maybe don't rely on it as your only source of getting work. What about word of mouth? So many people say, you've probably heard this before, oh, I never advertise, all my work comes through word of mouth. Now, I would say that word of mouth is an excellent way of getting new business. And for my business now that it's established, I do get lots of new clients via word of mouth, because when you do a good job, generally people will talk about it with their friends, with their family, and then you'll get new customers coming from referrals from your existing customers. But when you're starting a business from scratch, word of mouth doesn't work because you need to have a customer base to start with. So I would say don't rely on word of mouth as your sole advertising method if you're just starting up. You do need some sort of paid or targeted advertising to get an initial client base, which then you can build on using word of mouth referrals. But word of mouth is not an advertising strategy as such, in that you need a customer base to start with in order to actually get word of mouth. But when you've got customers, as I say, then definitely you can improve your word of mouth marketing by asking for referrals. So instead of just leaving it to chance, why not, once you've completed a job and the customer's happy, give them, say, 5 business cards and say, would you mind sharing my business cards with some family or friends who might also need an electrician at some point in the future? You can ask for referrals. You could even get a little form printed out and ask them to put the names of 5 family and friends who you could contact and share your services with. Or what you could do is drop a leaflet in the neighbours either side when you've finished at that job. You could even knock at their door and just say, I've just finished doing work for your neighbour here and they're very happy with our services. You can ask them yourself if you want. But just to let you know, we are electricians in your area and we'd be happy to help you if you need any electrical jobs. That's when word of mouth really becomes powerful and comes to life. So definitely worth trying to push a little bit for word of mouth adverts rather than just leaving it to chance. And with that in mind, it's important to have some business cards to hand. Again, you can get these very cheap online. You can even get some free business cards to start with. I went for a kind of high-end, luxury looking business card that was a little bit thicker. So you pay a little bit extra, but it's just when somebody has something tangible in their hand that they can feel and touch, it gives an impression about your business. Again, it's all about giving the best possible impression of your business. So if you have a quality business card, it speaks quality about your services and about the standard of work. So for me, paying a little bit extra to get some good quality business cards was definitely worth it. I'll leave a link below where you can get business cards printed as well. Then what happens sometimes is people will just stop you. They'll just see your van, sign written, and they'll say, have you got a business card? I need some electrical work doing. And you can give them a business card. Or, as I say, you can give business cards to your existing customers and ask them to hand those to their friends and family when they need some electrical work doing. So referrals, word of mouth, definitely there's a place for it, but it is something that kind of comes later on when your business is more well established. So that's marketing really. We've discussed all the different ways that I have used in the past to market my business, the ways that have worked and the ways that haven't worked, and hopefully this will help you to avoid making some expensive mistakes and help you target your limited ad budget. Because let's face it, when we're starting a new business, we don't have an unlimited budget. It will help you to target that in the places that are really going to work to grow your business and start generating leads for your business. But these marketing strategies take time to generate leads, they're not instant. So in the next lesson, I'm going to teach you some ways to generate instant leads for your business. That will mean you can pick up work instantly and get some money rolling in right from day one. So let's talk about that in the next lesson.